Question number 2, Grant Robertson.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Finance. Does he stand by his statement, quote, "Every minister believes that the decision that affects them is the one that makes all the difference to the surplus or the deficit," close quote?
Honourable Bill English.
Mr Speaker, yes I do, because I'm sure there's any number of ministers who believe that their decisions or decisions about their portfolio were responsible for the fact that Treasury announced in the 7 months to January a $77 million surplus, the first one in a number of years. Of course, it's too early to tell whether that will translate into a surplus for the full year, but we're quite happy for any and every minister to claim credit for the fiscal management that's gone into generating that $77 million surplus.
Supplementary question, Mr Speaker.
Supplementary question, Grant Robertson.
Does every minister have advice from their own department, the Treasury, the Ministry for Business, Innovation and Employment and outside agencies that they are in a position to save New Zealand businesses and workers $350 million as the ACC minister had?
Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr Speaker, all I can say to that member is that when they attacked the manufacturing sector as in crisis, it came right, and now that they're attacking the surplus, we've got one.
Mr Speaker.
Point of order. Can I invite the member to repeat his question?
Don't interrupt him this time,
Order.
Terry.
Order.
Come on. It was
Order.
you.
Order. I've been gracious enough to the member to allow him to ask his question. I'd now be grateful if he would.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Does every minister have advice from their own department, Treasury, the Ministry for Business, Innovation and Employment and outside agencies that they are in a position to save New Zealand businesses and workers $350 million as the ACC minister had?
Honourable Bill English.
Mr Speaker, no, but I think a number of ministers have had advice that protests outside government agencies over restructuring and wage rises, excessive wage rises, will probably make it harder to get to the surplus. And that member has organised such protests to ensure we have a deficit.
Question was answered at the very start.
Supplementary question, Mr Speaker.
Supplementary question, Grant Robertson.
Has the Minister of Revenue expressed the belief to him that decisions around the implementation of the child support system will make the difference between surplus and deficit, given the costs of that project have blown out from $30 million to $210 million?
Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr Speaker, I think he may have done, and as I think has been discussed both here and Select Committee, the child support changes were made a great deal more complex by the Select Committee, and it turns out that the cost of inserting those more complex changes into a very old tax system were high, and the Minister took a number of policy decisions to wind them back and reduce the cost, and that has helped us get to a surplus.
Supplementary question.
Supplementary question, Grant Robertson.
How often did the Minister of Revenue report to him about the escalation of $180 million of costs on the implementation of the child support system?
Honourable Bill English.
Mr Speaker, pretty regularly over a period of 2 or 3 years. I mean, it is a large, complex area of policy. We're striking the balance between administrative cost and fairness. Has proven to be very difficult, and every member of this House gets to deal with people who feel like they're on the wrong end of the child support law, and I thought the member might have been a bit more understanding about the reality for many New Zealand families.
Supplementary question, Mr Speaker.
Supplementary question, Grant Robertson.
As Minister of Finance, has he sought to hold anyone accountable for a blowout of $180 million in the implementation of the child support system?
Honourable Bill English.
Mr Speaker, yes, there's been a lot of discussions about clarity and accountability, and I think as the Commissioner for Inland Revenue stated in the last few days, ultimately she is accountable.
Supplementary question, Grant Robertson.
If she is accountable, what action does the government intend to take?
It's only $180 million.
Honourable Bill
Mr. Speaker,
English.
the government has a lot of confidence actually in the Commissioner for Inland Revenue, and it has taken a series of decisions. It has taken a series of decisions to minimise the cost, and actually, if the member took the time to understand the issues involved, he'd probably be asking a different set of questions.
Supplementary question, Mr Speaker.
Supplementary question, Grant. Robertson.
So can we confirm for the House's benefit that the Minister of Finance does not believe that he needs to do anything in particular about the fact that there has been a $180 million blowout in the cost of implementing the child support system?
Honourable Bill English.
No, Mr Speaker, I wouldn't confirm that because it's not the case. The government has worked on this issue for 3, if not 4 years, trying to dealing with the complexity and cost of delivering more fairness for New Zealand families who find themselves in pretty difficult situations, and I think every member of Parliament knows how hard these issues are. It turned out to cost more than was originally expected. A number of decisions were taken to wind that cost back considerably.
Question number 3, Dr. Jan Yang.
Thank you, Mr Speaker.